If you're looking for more horror outside of the mainstream, look no further than Unsung Horrors, a podcast about underseen horror movies. I'm Lance.
And I'm Erica. Every other week, we'll cover a horror movie with fewer than 1,000 views on Letterboxd. We'll even give you double feature recommendations to pair with the movies we discuss.
From gothic to shot on video, from slashers to comedies, from giallo to J-horror, we'll cover all the subgenres. So join us as we unearth these hidden gems of horror.
Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at Unsung Horrors, available wherever you listen to podcasts. And part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Hello and welcome to Tumbleweeds and TV Cowboys. My name is Hunter. In this podcast, I'll be joined by a different guest each week to discuss a classic Western movie or TV show. I've been a fan of classic Westerns for as long as I can remember, and in recent years, they've become very nostalgic for me. I love the aesthetic, the tropes, and I love seeing different filmmakers' takes on them. At their best, they're incredibly entertaining, rewatchable, and some of my all-time favorite movies are Westerns. We'll mostly focus on Western movies made in Hollywood, but we'll also be covering spaghetti Westerns, and one thing I'm very excited to get into are Western TV shows. I've got some amazing guests coming on the show, film professors, historians, and podcasters. And Tumbleweeds and TV Cowboys is part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network, and many guests on the show will be from other shows on the network. Thanks for listening.
Weirding Way Media.
Night, Mr. Walters.
You see that guy over there? No, he's an actor. The guy on the phone, he's a prize fighter. Me, I'm a cab driver. I'm the only cab driver in this place.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Night, Mr. Walters, a taxi podcast. I am your co-host, HP, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Father Malone. Father Malone, how are you?
That's Father Malone, super jerk.
That's super obscure for this episode. Wonderful job, as always, Father Malone. I look forward to that moment in every episode. So, of course, we're talking about, well, let me remind you before we get into it that we are doing these shows in broadcast order and not in order of filming. We are going into episode 9, which is called Money Troubles. It was written by Earl Pomerantz. And I'll give you 3 guesses who directed this episode, Father Malone. The first 2 don't count.
James Burrows.
You got it. Our friend James Burrows, the pride of wherever he's from.
Wherever he's from.
I don't know where he's from, unlike the Charleses, but I'm sure wherever he's from, people are very proud of him. Spoiler alert, this is a John Burns-centered episode.
Oh, boy.
I think that brings, we'll get into yellow lights, but I think we were already working at a minimum of yellow lights here, just on the face of it, because John Burns is, what did you call him? The giant...
Sinkhole of charisma.
The sinkhole. I think I took that and made it into the sinkhole of emotion, which applies.
Also a black hole of charisma at one point you called it, but
yeah,
they're all applicable, but I don't want to go that hard on poor Randall Carver.
This is not going to be a 5 yellow light episode. I can guarantee you that. But nevertheless, here we are. Let's move forward. Apparently, we kick off the episode once again. To my delight, we're back in the garage. I love these episodes that start and take place primarily in the garage. So we're in the garage, and apparently John is hosting dinner at his apartment for Rieger and Latka. And there's a funny bit where Elaine is coaching Latka in English dinner small talk. And he keeps getting the line, "I'm so hungry I could eat a horse." He keeps getting it wrong. I think he wants to change it to "I could eat a dog," which is somehow more acceptable for him.
Where he comes from, dogs apparently are delicious, but horses, yuck.
Yeah, that's literally what he says. He keeps trying to say the line, "Please pass the salt," at inappropriate moments. So it's very sweet. Again, we talked about this previously, but I love that they have Elaine. She's kind of expanded what her character, what she does and what she represents. She's very sweet, and she's helping Latka with his small talk. Louis, of all people, is pressuring John to invite him for dinner the following week because they're going to be hosting Elaine. Apparently, this is a thing where every week, maybe they're hosting a different cabbie to come to their house, their little apartment for dinner.
So weird.
Well, and it's equally weird that Louis, who says it, he says he doesn't like to fraternize with the cabbies. Why does he care to be invited to John's place for what promises to be an awful dinner? It doesn't make any sense to me.
If he knows Elaine is going to be there.
Well, no, but isn't that before he knows that Elaine is coming? I don't know.
No, you're right, because he's been inviting people like every week, and Elaine is going to be the next week. So you should invite me next week. What time should I be there? And he's like, okay, would you and Elaine like to come next week? Because Elaine's already on the docket as far as Burns is concerned.
Yeah, she's already on the calendar. Louis doesn't necessarily know that, but I don't know. It's an early indication that this is not going to be a very good episode when even Louis is missing the mark. And it's the writing. It's not DeVito. It's the writing. We cut to the Burns' apartment where John and his wife, Dorothy Hamill-Cutt, are making last-minute preparations for Rieger and Latka. So Rieger arrives with Latka, and Rieger comes bearing flowers, and Latka comes bearing the most disgusting homemade wine that I could ever imagine.
Can I tell you something? Can I tell you a story? In 1992, this is New Year's Eve, 1992, going into 1993, and I'm in Venice, California at a party. It's in one of these little bungalows. And somebody there was from the Ukraine. And they said, oh, you guys, I'm so excited. I've been brewing it all year long. My family's wine. And they brought out a jug very similar to the jug presented here on Taxi. And then they poured a consistency of maple syrup wine, again, hearkening to what occurs in this episode. This one, they go to the extreme and they basically turn it into like molasses, where it's so slow moving that it's impossible to even drink. The fake wine, I almost called it, the homemade wine that I had was a little more viscous, but still it was dreadful, and it just tasted like medicinal cough medicine. Anyway, so once that jug came out of the thing and he said, look, it's brown, which I remember the wine I drank not being brown, but a deep amber hue. Anyway, I had flashbacks and it deeply disturbed me. Anyway, let's continue.
So funny enough, I have, it's not as funny of a story as you have, but I also have an experience with homemade wine. I used to work with a guy years and years and years ago who had, his father was, I think, first generation or second generation from Italy. And he took great pride in his wine. And at the time, I still love wine, occasionally. That's, I love a good glass of wine. So he said, yeah, I'll, next time we have some homemade wine, I'll bring some in for you. I said, yeah, that'd be great. Not thinking about it. And I got it. It didn't come in the jug like you described or the one that is featured in this episode, but I'll never forget. It came, I should have known something was up because it was in like a blue glass bottle. So I couldn't see what color the wine was. I brought it home and I didn't drink it immediately. It was still some time elapsed before I got off the guts to drink it. And I opened it up and it smelled like feet. It just smelled so funky and not in a good way that I never got a chance to try it the way you tried your Ukrainian wine.
Not George Clinton funky, decomposing funky.
Yeah, like funky, like there's bacteria involved that you don't want in your system. So I said, no, thank you. John and Latka and Alex and Dorothy Hamill-Cutt, they decide to drink a toast to it or whatever. It's very funny. It's the consistency of honey, basically, is this wine. Another thing I really liked about this, I guess you can call this, like going into the second act. Latka has been working so hard on his English and trying to work up, how to use I could eat a horse in context. And like literally, I think the first thing that Alex says after he walks in is he says, I'm so hungry I could eat a horse, to which Latka gives him this incredible glare, like this
death stare.
This death stare that he's so upset because he's been working so hard on this. It's a great payoff of that bit from the first act.
And it pays off again because he lets it slip again. While they're sitting at the table, he says, hey, can you pass the salt? And Latka slams down on the table and the death stare returns, and it's even better than before.
The timing is so great. He pounds the table in frustration.
He has two possible things he can say at this dinner, and this dickhead just sort of casually keeps throwing them out there.
What's great about it is it underscores the awkwardness of the whole scene, because while they're sitting down and trying to start having this meal, Dorothy Hamilcutt gets called away from the table. She gets a phone call. She gets off the phone and she's in a very agitated state. She's slamming things around. She's upset. For some reason, lunkhead John Burns decides to cajole her into talking about what's bothering her, which is totally inappropriate for a dinner party with guests at the table.
I noticed you're feeling kind of bad. Well, why don't you tell us why you're feeling bad in front of our guests? I insist. Come on, do it.
It's not awkward enough that you have somebody who can barely speak the language, and you have Alex who just feels awkward anyway. He pressures her into saying what it is that's on her mind. She reveals to Alex and everybody else that her parents, well, first, before we even get to that, for some dumb reason, John reveals to Alex that her parents are paying their rent. Why the hell would you reveal that to a dinner guest? It's beyond me. What an idiot. He cajoles his wife to saying what's on her mind, what's bothering her, and she reveals that her parents are moving to a condo in Florida.
It's not so bad.
But they're no longer going to be able to pay their rent. She is going to nursing school. She's paying her way through nursing school. The apartment is tiny, right? It's tiny, and it's impressed upon us that they're really having a hard time making ends meet. So to not have that rent coming every month is going to basically kill, for one of them, it's going to kill their higher education dreams. She wants to be a nurse, like I said, and idiot John wants to be a forest ranger, right?
Okay, here's the thing. The rest of the episode is now invalid. There is no contest here. She wants to be a nurse, a highly sought after and in-demand profession, which commands a high salary very quickly, and you can earn so much money. Or he could learn to be a forest ranger in the hopes that a forestry job might pop up somewhere in the United States that will take them out of New York City to go do this. There's no question. Oh, they're not going to pay the rent anymore? Okay, honey, keep going to nursing school. I guess I'm a cabbie now, at least for a little while, until you're making the big bucks, and then I'll go fuck off and do whatever I want to do.
I said to myself, well, if these were real people, real reasoning people, they would, of course, look at the earning potential of a nurse versus a forest ranger, and they would make the prudent choice, which is, honey, I will help put you through school, and then you'll be making more money. You can support us. Then you can help me achieve my educational goals, whatever they might be. If I want to be a stupid forest ranger, not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's a far-fetched dream for somebody living in the middle of New York. The decision is obvious.
Yeah. Let's continue, because we'll dig back into this.
Yeah, we're going to circle back to this. It gets worse. They start arguing about the money and who should quit school. Is she going to, again, it's a ridiculous argument on the face of it, to which Dorothy Hamilcutt just storms off into another room. Idiot John decides that he has to cool off, so he's going to go for a walk, which is leaving poor Latka and Alex to awkwardly leave the house of their own accord.
She's locked herself in the bathroom. There is no other room. And their host has stormed off. Look, man, I would keep eating. Latka makes the right call. He just keeps eating his salad, and I would get up and get myself a plate. There's hot food waiting.
But I will say this: Alex does deliver the line about wanting him to pass the salt. But let me ask you a question, Father Malone. When's the last time you put salt on a salad? Didn't make any sense to me.
It doesn't make sense, and it never has made sense. But I do recall a time when people did salt their salads, and I have salted salads in my youth, just because I had seen other people doing it, and I thought, oh, well, that must be the sophisticated way to eat a salad. A little dash of salt. It's just there for the laugh. But there is precedent for salting your salad. That's also a thing.
There's already salt in whatever dressing you've decided to apply to the salad. The salt just becomes redundant, but whatever.
You don't have to you don't have to sauce your salad, You can just eat it as is. You can add a little bit of oil and vinegar and a little bit of salt on the oil and vinegar. It makes it taste good, actually.
It sounds delightful. I'll have to have a salad after this episode.
Taxi reviewing and food show.
Well, I mean, you are the macho gourmet, so of course we're going to talk about food here. So now we cut to the garage where now Alex is struggling with the dilemma about whether
Here's the
to have
real dilemma of the show, right? Here's the drama. Whether or not Rieger's going to give these poor kids the money, because he's got money. He's got money to burn. Alex is independently wealthy. He does this for love.
Apparently, because, you know, he volunteers this. I mean, the cabbies are his friends and what have you, but it's a little weird that he kind of so easily volunteers the fact that he's got all this extra money.
I have a new theory. Alex Rieger is Batman.
he's like the Caped Crusader of cabbies or something.
Yes. That's what he's actually doing at night. That's why he hadn't picked up any fares in the previous episode when Latka was hiding in his backseat. Why? He wasn't looking for fares. He was looking for crime.
I found that a little bit off-putting. I mean, look, it's great that Alex is so concerned about John's plight, but he's ambivalent for good reason. I mean, that people's friendships have been ruined over money, you know, routinely. So he's uncertain. I'm sure there's a part of him that just doesn't want to part with the money because regardless of how much he claims he has, he's not a rich man. So he's struggling with this notion of whether to give the money or not. Then John comes in and he looks awful.
Oh, no, wait. First of all, before John comes in, they gotta give us a button here. This moment to remind us what a cheapskate Bobby Wheeler is. where he's like, oh, you should definitely give him the money. Is it somebody we know? You know, I'm like, yeah, it is somebody we know. I'm like, oh, no, don't give him the money. Don't give him the money.
Yeah.
Right? And then on top of that, John walks in, Bobby walks up to him and says, you look terrible.
It's literally the first thing he says to John as he says, you look terrible.
And then he explains it. He's like, I'm working like 16-hour shifts and I'm like killing myself. He's like, oh, then I guess you don't look so bad. It like burns.
Bobby doesn't feature in the episode much at all, but he's very memorable in this little bit here. He comes in and he basically, you know, conveys the fact that he's a selfish prick. And he just cuts down Burns like left and right. It's amazing. So John, he looks miserable. He is miserable. And he pours his heart out to the rest of the cabbies. He's insufferable because he's still refusing to understand the logic of the situation.
He's not even dealing with that dilemma at this point in the episode. This is the gross part of the episode. And I'm no prude, HP, but his main problem is they didn't settle their argument. They did everything in silence and then just went to bed. And he feels that pattern of behavior is going to continue, and they're newlyweds and they didn't have sex. And really, that's the only thing that's troubling him at this point. And I'm now going to be haunted by the image of Randall Carver cocking his head in the place of saying the word sex.
That really is the crux of what's troubling him. He doesn't really talk about, you're right, he doesn't talk about the financial and moral dilemma of what they have in front of them. What's troubling him is they're newlyweds and they didn't have sex to settle the argument. They didn't have sex that morning. They've gone, 2 days without having sex, and this is really troubling to him.
Not their monetary situation, not that one of them is going to have to give up their dreams, and it should be her. You know, in previous episodes, I haven't liked John Burns as a character just because he's been dopey and he's out of place and out of step with the rest of the characters on the show. But now this episode, I'm actively beginning to hate him because they're making him out to be completely despicable. And it just keeps happening in the episode. His initial reaction that he didn't immediately say, you should be the one, it was sort of strike number one. Strike number two is that he doesn't even really care about anything but getting fucked. And then it'll come back again.
He's digging himself a hole. The more that he tries talking about the situation and what's troubling him about it and what everything around it, the more he's painting himself as completely unlikable. For somebody who is ostensibly designed to be an audience proxy, I don't want him speaking for me as an audience, as a viewer. I don't want him speaking for me because he's a jerk. So they cut back to their apartment.
No. How dare you, sir? We're not there yet.
I thought, Elaine. giving him
Yes,
advice.
we got to talk about Elaine Nardo here for a moment, because Elaine comes in, ever the voice of reason, talks to John Burns, tells him, maybe one of you just ought to apologize. And of course, he takes that to mean, yes, how do I make her apologize? Ha ha ha. Isn't that funny? No, it's not funny. This guy's a prick. But here's what I noticed in this scene, HB. Marilu Henner could convince me that I was born on another planet and I arrived here. Like if she in conversation told me that, I think I would believe her. She's just that earnest in her delivery and so warm that not only would I believe that I was an alien if she told me that, but I would believe the date I had arrived, because she would remember it.
That's right. What I think is great about the scene with her is she's speaking from experience is really what's wonderful about it, because as she says, I'm not maybe the best person to give advice on this, given the fact that I'm divorced, but here's my perspective on this. Here's the benefit of my experience, John. Take it for what it is, but here's how I would handle this. There's 2 words that will cure almost anything. And those 2 words are, I'm sorry. But for somebody who's such a blockhead, like John, he's taking this as, how do I then make my wife apologize for something that she shouldn't have to apologize for?
She has been living off her family's largesse this entire time. He needs to apologize. He needs to go and say, baby, you do it. You go, you do school. We'll figure me out later. Thank you for keeping me alive in New York City. I'm clearly helpless. This town was going to eat me up.
Her influence and her family and the resources therein have kept him afloat. Because how many episodes have we seen Louis threatening to fire John because he's not making bookings, he's not pulling his weight in the garage? He's a bum. He doesn't deserve Dorothy Hamilcutt.
And she's working as well and going to nursing school. Listen, I'm the child of a nurse. I'm the grandchild of a nurse. That shit's hard. Forest school? What is he learning about? SAP? About deciduousness? No. That's easy. You can do that in between passengers in your cab. She's dealing with blood and leukocytes. I don't know.
We can't stress it enough. Like, there's no comparison. I'm sorry, forestry majors. I'm sorry, forest rangers out there. I guess a nurse isn't going to be that useful if the forest is on fire. I guess you'd really need a forest ranger there to fix the situation.
You know what? We're going to keep having this conversation because it comes to bear in the next scene as well. When we finally, he's gone back. There's no apology made, but they're at least talking, right?
No, that's not true. He walks in, and the first words he says are, "Oh, I'm sorry." So to his credit, his conscience finally gets the better of him. When he sees his wife, he says, "I'm sorry." However, that does not mean that A, he's willing to compromise, or B, that he was in the wrong at all.
No, because he comes in and says the words, and then they don't have a conversation. They just start, because they're both horny, clearly, but they are newlyweds. So they immediately start unpacking their hideaway couch bed sleeper. But then they start having the conversation like, wait, which one of us is quitting? Which one of us is not going to school? But before that gets anywhere, Rieger shows up. This bit of comedy that makes no sense to me. I'm sorry. It's like a French farce moment. It's like a Three's Company moment where they're trying to shove the bed back into the couch and they can't get it in there, and it's like this panicky. We got to get this in before we open the door. First of all, they're the ones opening the door. Rieger can wait in the hallway. He showed up unannounced. Secondly, calm down. Everything goes back together very easily if you just don't freak out. And third, who cares if he comes in and sees the bed? What is this?
They're not children. I mean, these are adults. He knows what, they're newlyweds. He was a newlywed once himself, Alex was. He's not a prude. I don't think this is a big deal.
The bit of comedy about trying to get the bed back into the thing was already done on network television on Happy Days. You remember this one? Richie Cunningham has a girl in Fonzie's apartment and he thinks he's going to score, and she's in the bathroom, so he starts taking, and he's singing "I Found My Thrill" on Blueberry Hill, and then she clarifies, by the way, this is not a sex thing, I'm just your pal. And he's like, and then so he starts rapidly putting it back and he's singing "I'm Blueberry Hill" quickly and says, "I'm in big trouble." Anyway, That's all.
I can't believe you brought that up. That is the perfect example of this. Yes, as I'm watching this unfold, that was where my mind went too. I thought, well, this is like a Three's Company moment where they're feverishly getting the bed unfurled and they're tangled in an embrace, and then he knocks on the door, Alex does, and then they have to reverse everything and the thing won't go down. They open the door and John is left sitting awkwardly on this half collapsed bed, kind of like, hey, what's going on? Frankly, it felt beneath what I consider like the reputation of Taxi.
Unnecessary slapstick. We don't need it.
As you say, it's like a French farce kind of moment. And Alex comes in. Alex kind of opens up about his ambivalence and loaning them the cash. Initially, John refuses the offer. Dorothy Hamilcutt is ambivalent. And her point is, why is it okay for us to take my parents' money, but it's not okay for us to take the money of a friend of yours when it's so willingly offered? Like, that's a fair point.
The rest of the scene is them debating whether or not they're going to take the money, while Alex has removed himself to the restroom.
Because it's such a small apartment, that's the only place he can go.
Okay, so now he's trapped in there. We don't get to see him, unfortunately. I wish they had cut into the bathroom of him just sitting there, because I kept wondering, what is he doing in there the whole time? You know, he doesn't have a cell phone. He can't be like checking anything. There's only so many labels you can read on the borax. Like, check the medicine cabinet. I'm sure he was doing that. Anyway, so the debate rages between them about why it was acceptable for them to accept the money. And he lays out a very reasoned argument that it ended up bothering him for the wrong reasons. And he was feeling guilty for taking that money, and he didn't want to experience that again. And he didn't want to experience it with a good friend of his. All of that makes sense. It would bother his peace of mind going to sleep at night knowing that he owes Alex $2,500. And I would say the price of his peace of mind is dropping out of Sticks for Hicks, or whatever they call forestry school, and doing the right thing and letting his wife continue on her course of becoming a nurse.
John actually makes a lot of sense in his conversation with his wife. I can relate to that. It's one thing with his father-in-law, because we've already seen his father-in-law, and he's delightful from our perspective, but he's probably not the easiest man to deal with as a father-in-law. You know, there's expectations, I'm sure, that come along with that. So I can relate to a degree about John's not wanting to let it hurt his friendship with Alex or hurt his peace of mind. Alex makes it also very clear that, like, getting paid back is kind of important to him too. It's one of the reasons why he doesn't want to lend the money, because he doesn't want to put that pressure on anybody else.
That trepidation you're feeling, it's warranted. I want my money back. This isn't a gift for you crazy kids.
Good for him for setting that expectation to say, like, you know, just understand that I'm not just giving you this money. This isn't a gift. You're going to pay me back someday on this. Now it's become a two-hander. It's just John and his wife debating what direction they're going to go in. And finally, John decides, well, the only fair thing to do would be to...
He continues his despicable streak here by deciding, let's flip a coin. What are you doing, man? Can it get worse than him deciding whether or not him and his stupid aspirations or his wife's noble profession should be their course of action here? No.
He's going to decide it on the flip of a coin.
No, but he wins. He wins.
No, but he doesn't win, though. He doesn't win.
Because he's a liar on top of everything.
He flips the coin, and he kind of peeks under his hand, and I think it's tails, she gets to stay in school, and heads, he gets to stay in school. So he flips it, and he picks up his hand, and he says, oh, it's heads. His wife immediately starts to kind of fall apart. You can see how disappointed she is.
You know what? She falls apart, but she keeps it together. She doesn't like start sobbing and, you know, begging to be the one to go to school or anything. She accepts her fate and does so with grace. Unlike her partner, who now falls apart, crying. And, you know, HP, at that moment I thought, oh, he's finally doing the right thing. He's going to say, no, you should go, not me. And he does, but it's only because it was only right, because she won the goddamn coin toss and he lied to her. I wanted to share what I wrote in my notes about that scene. Flip a coin? Fuck you. Anyway, their apartment, by the way, am I wrong, or will that eventually become Reverend Jim's apartment? I seem to remember Jim being visited by aliens in some sort of dream sequence episode later in the year. And it seems to me that he lives in a loft with floor to ceiling windows.
It is a little different. To be honest, the layout of their apartment, not that I'm a big fan of this show, but it reminded me much more of what would become the Friends apartment with those like sloped windows that they would always. I think there was a guy like someone who like would walk around their apartment naked. They'd always watch the guy out the window. No. The thing about Jim's apartment, if memory serves, and we'll talk about it when we get to those episodes, it's much bigger, and it was floor to ceiling windows on that side, but it was like what you would expect to see in a warehouse. So they flip this coin, and he finally comes clean that he didn't that she won, not him. They talk about it a little bit more, and they decide that why don't we just take the money from Alex? He's offering the money. It will help us. We won't have to give up either of our dreams. Let's just do it. Alex comes out of the bathroom, and they say, Alex, we've come to a decision. And what's funny about it to me is that Alex is clearly anticipating that they're going to turn down his offer, because I think he even starts saying like, I get it, you don't want to ruin the friendship or whatever. And they go, well, no, we think our friendship is strong enough to last you lending us the money. So we would love to take all the money you can give us. That's it. They decide to take the money. Poor Alex is now stuck giving them the 25 large.
Alex Rieger, super jerk.
That's what he says at the end. And then there's a short epilogue after that where now Louis knows that he's going to this dinner with Nardo.
Which I maintain he has known all along. This was all part of a scheme he knew Nardo was going, and now he's invited himself along. And
that is certainly in character for Louis to do that, to have that kind of like devious plan. I just didn't really buy it, but the button is basically he comes on to Nardo and in a very uncomfortable moment says to her, like, because she says, don't get this wrong. This is not a date. Yeah. I'm not going with you. And no one, but his thing is, well, if I tell everybody that we were on a date and I tell everybody that we were involved, then, who's to say like that I can't say that and basically spread a really nasty, awful rumor about you. To which her retort is, well, you can do that, but what if I just say that you couldn't perform? And that's somehow enough to keep Louis at bay, and he backs off. But that is a little weird, uncomfortable that he's basically talking about shaming her into like...
It's certainly not cool.
It's not cool at all, but that's Louis, I guess.
If you're going to be fencing with somebody, don't fence with Elaine Nardo, because she's ready, man. She'll yell. She will yell rape if you won't get out of her cab. So she's ready for your lame ass, I had sex with her charge. She's locked and loaded. You're impotent. How about that, Louis De Palma? I'll get on the microphone and start yelling it right now. Like, okay, fine, Nardo.
She wouldn't take it from that irate customer, and she's not going to take it from Louis. She'll never take it from Louis. So that's the episode. Let's talk about what good can we pull from this episode. Father Malone, tell me there's more to this episode than all the negativity that we just yammered on about. What's good about this episode?
I think we've been speaking positively about the episode as well. There's been lots of good gags and lots of good lines. My favorite bit in the entire episode is when Alex first goes into the bathroom and they begin talking. She says two things are bothering her. One being that they've taken money from her parents the whole time, and now he refuses to take any more money. And the second thing is, or the first thing she mentions, is the fact that she forgot to put towels in the bathroom. When Alex mid-conversation comes out to see where they're at, and he like hears that they might not be taking his money, he's shaking his hands and looking for a towel. I thought that was a nice callback and really funny.
My favorite part of the episode is the interplay between Latka and Alex as they're going to this dinner party, if you will. And Alex keeps stealing the lines that Latka's been really working at. I thought that was great. The interplay between the two of them is always solid. To some degree, I have to give some credit to Earl Pomerantz, because it maybe is slightly unusual that in the end they decided to take his money, because it feels like the easy, more kind of tidy, sitcom-y solution would have been for them to refuse it and they'll figure something else out or whatever. But in the end, they took the selfish route. They took the money that was offered. That was somewhat unusual that they went in that direction.
No, it is surprising because everything seems like every other sitcom into the 80s and 90s would have been not actually deal with this financial problem. A lot of sitcoms dealt with financial issues to sort of hang their drama on, and then never really paid off. So it was interesting for them to take the money at the end, when the clear moral decision, as we know, was for John to not continue his education, at least postpone it for a little while.
That can be looked at as a positive,
I have one other positive thing, which is in that the little stinger at the end between Nardo and De Palma, when she threatens to tell everyone he's impotent. He's holding a receipt in his hand, which goes limp when she accuses him. It's a great bit of comedy, visual, physical comedy.
Everything to me, all of these combinations that we're seeing kind of bounce off each other. We have Alex and Latka, we have Louis and Elaine. All of these just further reinforce in my mind that John was and continues to be the odd man out, because every time he's on the screen interacting with anybody, it could be his wife, could be Alex, could be, Louis, he feels like a character from a stock sitcom. He could very easily fit into an episode of Mama's Family. That's what he feels like to me. He's just a yokel who doesn't understand the ways and means of New York.
He should have been on Making It with David Nutten. The rube amongst the disco boys. Like he's that character, that caliber of character. I guess we're talking about the bad parts of this episode, because now he's a villain. He does everything in his power to do the wrong thing in this episode, and only does the right thing, I don't know, out of convenience or something, or some level of guilt, or maybe I don't know. This just makes me actively really dislike him. Whereas before, you could put it aside when he got a good line and wasn't insufferable.
In the episode prior to this, Paper Marriage, he was fine. Like there's nothing necessarily that would pull you out of the episode. Here, it's a heel turn. He's no longer just someone who acts out of naivete, without thinking. He is a villain. He is doing the wrong thing to further his own selfish needs.
He's like a Jim Thompson protagonist. He's been going around pretending he's this lunk-headed dummy when really he's a schemer.
He's the killer inside me. He's Sheriff Lou. And the funny thing is, I've been watching this show like you have for decades now, and I never really thought of it, but you're right. This episode is really effectively a heel turn for him, where he goes from being just a Woody archetype, if you will, from Cheers, to being just a not a nice person. Certainly someone who doesn't deserve a supporting and loving wife that he has.
On second thought, maybe this is the effect of New York on John. Like they could have played this like where he just kept like he becomes more and more like the other characters at the cab company, like Bobby Wheeler's cheapskatedness, and Louis De Palma's depravity, and Tony Banta's will to violence. We haven't seen that yet, but I know it's there.
So we're kind of witnessing the disintegration of the moral character of the only innocent who has been the whole show.
The seduction of John Burns was the colon subtitle of the series.
Maybe it's become kind of a Scorsesean descent into the mind of a person trying to hold on to their innocence and their ideals in a corrupt town.
That's how I'm viewing the entire show from now on. At least until the end of this season.
It certainly makes it more palatable and maybe more amusing. The bad is very self-evident here. This is already a Burns-centered episode, so that's already a couple of yellow lights, knocked off the final score, just on principle. The struggling newlyweds with money difficulties, let's face it, we've mentioned this, is a tired sitcom trope to begin with. They really don't add much to that or further it, except for the fact that, as we said, in the end, they take the money from Alex, which is a little unexpected. So there is that. The other thing that I wrote down here is I'm still missing the rest of the cabbies here. I think collectively they maybe have 3 lines. Bobby is probably the one who has the most to do outside of everyone else, but this is really Alex, John, and Dorothy Hamilcutt's episode. Everyone else is kind of secondary, which is a shame.
Does Bantha even get a line?
If he does, it's unmemorable. Let's talk some yellow lights.
What does a yellow light mean?
Father Malone, what do you give this episode in terms of yellow lights?
It should be a 2 yellow light episode because it's a Burns-centric episode, but it's a 3 yellow light episode because what works in the episode works so well that I have to give it up.
Wow.
And you know what? I take the reveal of John Burns as the central antagonist of the series here to be a positive in this. It is worthy of 3 yellow lights. I'm going with 3.
I'm kind of shocked. I actually gave it 2 yellow lights, which is, granted, it's not a far cry from what you're saying. It should have been 1 yellow light. It should have been. But some of the comedy and the performances save it for me from being a total waste of time. You know, my reasoning is slightly different, but I'm giving it 2 yellow lights. I see what you're saying, but I can't ignore the fact that this episode may be crazy with all of the bad choices and the wrong-headedness of the character, that if I'm going to go back and rewatch a Taxi episode, this is going to be towards the bottom of the list.
Right below Angela.
So that's going to do it for this episode of Night, Mr. Walters. Father Malone, when you're not spending time with our favorite cabbies, what are you up to?
You can find me hanging around the Night Gallery in midnight viewing, the Night Gallery podcast I do over at Weirding Way Media. All of my podcasts can be found there. All of my other sort of esoteric nonsense can be found at fathermalone.com. You can check out either.
Fantastic. Check that out. And as for me, I'm found in many of the same corners of the internet. I'm also proud to be on the Weirding Way network. You can hear me not only here, but you can hear me on the Wolf and Raisin Banachek podcast. You can hear me doing a podcast called Noise Junkies, which is a music podcast with myself, Father Malone, and the wonderful Heather Drain. Please check that out. And you can also hear me here and there on Dark Destinations, which is Father Malone's audio drama podcast. Please check that out as well.
You can hear HP in everything I'm associated with because he does the music for everything, including the music you hear for the bumpers for Weirding Way Media. So there you go. Indispensable is the HP.
Thank you, Father Malone. For myself and for Father Malone, thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you next time.
Night, Mr. Walters.
Hello, my name is Kevin Tudor, and I'm one of the 3 hosts of Almost Major, a film podcast dissecting many major indie studios and the films they release. Every week, myself, Charlie Nash, and Bryden Doyle discuss overlooked, forgotten, or bona fide classic indie films via studio-specific miniseries. We've previously covered numerous films from Artisan Entertainment, Lionsgate Films, and New Line Cinema. Titles including The Blair Witch Project, American Psycho, Dogville, But I'm a Cheerleader, Saw, Requiem for a Dream, and Ringmaster, you know, the Jerry Springer film. Anyways, we have a fun time every week and we hope you will join us. Subscribe to Almost Major wherever you get your podcasts. Now proudly a part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.